What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Tuesday show. Big 12 gamer on deck today. MLB DFS Lineup Card presented by rotoscouts.com. That means it's basically presented by me. My name's Terry McBride. I'm the man behind Rotoscouts. I don't really know where I'm going with this intro. You guys all know who I am. Welcome to the show, gang. Matthew Tomlinson's in the chat. What up, Matthew Tomlinson? He says, what up in my direction? Stephen B says, blessings and prosperity to all. Good luck. Nice thoughts there. Let's win some money. Really like that thought. Travis Duarte. Sounds like Travis had a little bit of a rough one yesterday. Man, oh man, yesterday was shake my head tough. Calvin Dunn's in the chat. I actually had a decent day yesterday. Put one in 6th, 7th on FanDuel, somewhere around there. I had 4 or 5 different lineups that rotated through the top 10 as the night went on, and then one that got up there, I think it was Pirates. It was either Pirates or a Sawinski one-off, like we talked about, that was in it. I know he was in the lineup. I forget what else was in it. It was a Corbin lineup, so it had like a weak pitching performance, but got there on hitting. And then I had another one that was chasing that that had both Muncy and Whit Merrifield in it in the extra innings game out in LA in the late game. But that one didn't quite get there. But a couple top 100 finishers and a top 10 there that will keep the bills paid, keep the lights on. So it was a decent day for me. Hopefully a bigger day. We've got some good tournaments on deck. Like I said, really interesting 12-gamer for today's slate. I think there's a ton of pitching available. There's also a couple really ripe spots for hitting. We've got some weather that we've got to duck in some of my favorite spots of the day, so it's kind of a pain in the ass for that. But we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about all of it. We'll go game by game as usual, letting people trickle into the chat. Lone Wolf says, what's up? Same thing as was up before when we were talking stats, buddy. Just getting the content up on the site, so everything's up on Rotoscouts. Check out the full article, do the game-by-game rundown, and sometimes it gets a little bit deeper than the show, sometimes it's a little bit lighter than the show, but between the two, hopefully it gives you a good look at the slate. Stack tools updated, home run picks are updated, home run, what the hell do I call that? The power index? Whatever the hell that thing's called. All those things are updated on the slate, too. Dennis says 4-4 Pirates Cards. Was that my lineup? Sounds right. Cards were a good spot. We talked about them. I like that one. Podegen Stoner's in the chat. Wake and bake DFS baseball bitches from Garden City, Colorado. I still don't know how to enunciate that bitches properly. It's like bitches. It's like bitches. Like a stoner bitches. Because he's obviously, a Podegen Stoner. I'm not sure. Because originally I was doing it like big, like bitches. But I don't think that's really what he's going for there. So I'm not entirely sure how to enunciate that properly. But I'll keep on giving it a shot until we land on something we like. Got 8-game in the chat. Oh, what's up, 8-game? All right, everybody. I give this a couple minutes of intro. Joker's getting excited to get the show underway. We've got 12 games to talk about, and I do want to have some time to build lineups later on, so let's kind of dive in. We'll go game by game. People can catch up as they trickle in. Opening game on the slate here. Says, bitches. You're doing great. All right, right on. I appreciate it. Matt Tomlinson's here. What's up, Matt? So first game on deck. Little bit of weather concern in this one. It seems like the expectation among the weather professionals out there is that this is generally going to clear. Maybe they late started by a little bit, but we're probably okay. It is raining right now as I look out the window in Jersey City, which is, roughly 5-6 miles, 7 miles south of Yankee Stadium as the crow flies. So we're very much the same weather patterns here. There's a lot of rain, as I understand it, coming up through New Jersey from people who I've been talking to further south in New Jersey and central, where it comes up and pushes up toward me in the city here. I do believe that it'll pass in time for the game to get in, but just given a lot of really ugly looking storms, there's always that consideration where they just scrap the game, play 2 tomorrow. It's a Subway Series. It's easy enough for them to reschedule, put a doubleheader up tomorrow, whatever they want to do. So it is a little bit risky, but I do think this is a very interesting spot. We've got Justin Verlander on the hill for the Mets. We've got Domingo Germán going for the Yankees. We know that Germán is kind of all over the place. Obviously, through the perfect game several starts ago, he's had 3 of his last 4 outings, had 9 strikeouts, including that perfect game. One of those was that clunky start the next game where he gave up 6 earned runs, though. So that's a little bit difficult to quantify. He's just kind of an all-over-the-map pitcher. He's got a 4.25% home run rate. A lot of hard hits allowed, a lot of barrels allowed. But he's got a terrific swinging strike rate. 14.8% swinging strike rate is one of the better marks in all of baseball. 30.5% CSW is very, very good. 4.52 ERA, a 4.11 xFIP. Those are fine. They're not ideal, but they're fine. The 4.11 xFIP is obviously better. That's the way that you'd want those numbers to be oriented. We had a little bit of a chat about xFIP and some of the other statistics, and at some point it was Lone Wolf who asked that question in the Discord, and it's come up a few times. At some point I'll try and put together a little bit of a breakdown, but like I linked to in the Discord there, if anybody's looking for any definitions about any of these statistics, the best possible place to go is Fangraphs has a glossary link. Just go to that and drop it down and look up whatever stat you're looking for. Not only do they give you a full breakdown, including the formula on how to calculate it and tell you very specifically what it is, what information it's trying to glean, and how it's different from like the baseball card stats. It also gives you a really good look of, John Schreiber's starting tonight for the Red Sox now. It also gives you a really good look of, Trey, I think that's you. It seemed like everybody could hear me. I feel like people would have told me if I was the one that was muted. Don't do that to me. You know I have problems turning the microphone on at the beginning of shows sometimes. Let me know if you can't hear me for whatever reason. But what I was saying is, if you're looking for those definitions, the best thing that they have on that slide is on that glossary page is that they contextualize everything, so that they tell you, all right, between this and this for ISO is good, between this and this is great, between this and this is average, between this and this is below average. So it really gives you the ability to use those stats exactly like they're supposed to be used. It really helps understand what those statistics are for. So in the meantime, if you have questions about it, go to there, but I will try and put something together with at least the key stats that we talk about, so it's a little bit better. Dennis says, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but it's because I can't get my kids to be quiet. Hey, shut up out there, Dennis's kids. God, go lie down, just like Joker. Are you allowed to yell at kids and tell them to go lie down? Probably not. That'll probably get you arrested. Some kind of child abuse. All right, Joker, good boy. You, I'm allowed to tell go lie down. Go lie down. All right, so to dive back into this, so Dingerman, I do think there's a little bit of upside. 8,300, 8,200. It's not like he's expensive, given the potential to find 7-8 strikeouts in this matchup, pitch a handful of clean innings. Obviously, he's got upside to a perfect game type ability. Don't think he's going to do that again anytime soon. The question mark that I have with him is the power that he allows, and the short starts. Typically, if he gets into trouble around the 5th or the 6th, outside of that perfect game and a couple other spots, Boone's got a fairly quick hook with him. So I worry about the depth, but there is good strikeout potential. So at price, he's okay. He doesn't project out great for me. It wouldn't shock me if he had an okay game. Verlander on the other side, I think he's kind of pulled things together. A 3.47 ERA, a 4.50 xFIP, only 20.6% strikeout rate, only 9.8% swing, 24.9% CSW overall. It's not been entirely pretty, but over, let's see, three quality starts in his last 5 outings. Went 5 innings in each of the other 2 starts, but both of them were good starts. But he only went 5 innings was the point there. So he missed the quality start in what was a good start. Handful of strikeouts, clean innings. He allowed 4 or more runs only 4 times across his 14 starts. 2 of them he allowed 6 runs. 2 of them he allowed 4 runs. Every other start this season, he's been keeping runs in check to a pretty good degree, fewer than 4 runs. Most of those are 0 to 2 runs. So he hasn't been as bad as it seems like he's been. I know the strikeouts are way down, but we've gotten away with this play in spots in a few different spots already this season. 91, 96, he's still really affordable, and the Yankees have been a disaster. I mean, they've been super targetable with a lot of pitchers that are worse than Justin Verlander. So I think there's every reason in the world to believe in this projection, to kind of just ride with Verlander shares, assuming this game either starts on time and with a clean forecast, or delay starts and gets a normal start. If it's a start and stop, then I worry about, does Verlander come back out? He's an old man, etc., etc. But in a normal situation, I think there's definite upside for Justin Verlander here. So I like that spot. He's one of the more highly projected pitchers on the board. He's not at the very top, but he's in the the top end. There's a pretty big group of pitchers with pretty respectable, healthy projections today. Lineups wise, I definitely think we can roster Mets, against Domingo Germán. They were projecting out as one of the better projection teams on the board when I looked at the team stacks tool. You can see in the relative numbers here, there's a couple green dots in there. We've got Francisco Alvarez with all his power. Pete Alonso in the midst of a major slump, but that's got him priced down to 4,500 on DK. 3,500 on FanDuel is, a little bit cheap, but it's not the discount that the 4,500 is on DraftKings. Hammer away with that spot against a guy with a home run problem. 4.25% home runs. Again, to reiterate, 39.3% hard hits, 8.8% barrels allowed by Germán. Pete Alonso can target that short right field porch as well as anybody. He can also blast one to the deep part of left center field in Yankee Stadium against this pitcher. So, there's major upside for Pete Alonso at cheap pricing in this spot. Francisco Lindor, Jeff McNeil, you guys know I don't love hitting third, but at least he's a table setter ahead of Alonso, Vogelbach, and Francisco Alvarez. So given that he can get on base for cheap prices and correlate with those guys, he's perfectly fine. I really like the spot for Brandon Nimmo. Lefty bat, always opportunity to take a shot at that at the short porch for him as well. 15 home runs, underrated power for Nimmo. He's really highly regarded for his on-base skills, for being a good leadoff hitter, but he's also got a 47.2% hard hit rate, 9.9% barrels, 15 homers, a 183 ISO, creating runs 27% better than average. So the top end here is really good. Vogelbach is a playable part because he's really cheap. He's only got 6 home runs on the season. He should be more in a platoon role, but he's playing a lot because he's on the strong side of the platoon. He only costs 2,200, 47.3% hard hit rate on the season. There's definite upside there. Again, Yankee Stadium, you always want to roster some lefty power. So I can believe in the upside for Vogelbach. Brett Beatty, 45.5% hard hits. Hasn't done much with him. 7 home runs in 260 plate appearances is okay, but only a 124 ISO. But a premium prospect, a bat they believe in. DJ Stewart, a $2,300 dead minimum on FanDuel, lefty in the outfield. Playable. 1 home run in 17 plate appearances, 1 stolen base. Not much of an option. Had an okay year, 3 years ago in Baltimore, I think it was. But not a premium option by any means, but very cheap at the bottom of the lineup with a little bit of pop from the left side. Mark Canha is also a playable part down there. So I think the Mets play pretty significantly here. I like the spot. I'm hoping they're not crazy popular. I like the home run marks that 3 of those guys are getting. And I would throw Brandon Nimmo into the home run potential pile as well there. On the Yanks side of things, Bowers is miscast in the leadoff spot, 316 on base. That's fine. He does walk at a team leading right now 12%, but he strikes out 29% of the time. He's more of a sellout for power type. It's not a great option in the leadoff spot, but I get why he's there given this version of the lineup. Gleyber Torres, Giancarlo Stanton, Anthony Rizzo. Obviously, there's power through that trio. They're all very cheap on the FanDuel slate. All 3 of those hitters, $3,000 apiece. Bowers, you can bolt on from the top spot for $2,400 in the first base or in the outfield. He's got lefty pop. Rizzo's got lefty pop. Billy McKinney later in the lineup also does. $2,300, $2,400 for him. 5 home runs, 95 plate appearances with a 235 ISO. McKinney and Bowers are not like premium major league bats. They're more quad A type players. But while they're here and while they're cheap, the lefty power does play in Yankee Stadium. If Verlander makes a mistake, he has given up 41.6% hard hits this year, 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo. Obviously can be got for a little bit of home run potential there. But it's a flawed version of the Yankees lineup. There's a lot of strikeouts on the table for Justin Verlander here. So plenty of upside for him. And then you get to the part of the lineup that's got like DJ LeMahieu, Harrison Bader, Anthony Volpe, Kyle Higashioka. There are 3 very flawed hitters right now. LeMahieu's a mess this season. 233, 297, 375, 15% below average creating runs. He's very cheap. He plays multiple positions. He used to be DJ LeMahieu. I'm not quite sure who he is right now. But he's striking out way more than DJ ever did and not hitting for average, not getting on base, not creating runs. Bader is an infrequent counting stat guy. 7 home runs, 9 stolen bases, but a 91 WRC plus, a 1 in 190 plate appearances. Only a 7.3% barrel rate, 28% hard hit rate. I think Bader's one of these guys. He's got the reputation of being a better hitter than he is, I think, just because he's got the knack for hitting a big home run. Like all 7 of those home runs kind of feel like they came in big spots. But he doesn't do it frequently. He doesn't hit the ball hard frequently. He's cheap. He's a capable outfielder. He's a very good defender in the outfield. He can provide counting stats, but it's really infrequent. Volpe's the same story. 13 homers, 17 stolen bases, and 82 WRC plus, totally inconsistent. 209, 281, 376 in a rookie season that's been completely all over the place, to be honest. A deeper Yankees team in a different season would have probably sent him back down for more seasoning. They've just not been deep enough where they can afford to do that this year. Or they're just figuring like, hey, it's maybe not a lost season, but it's a season in which we can tolerate giving the kid the appearances in the show. Maybe that's how they're looking at it, but flawed player right now. Capable, but flawed. Kyle Higashioka, excellent contact profile that we talk about very frequently when he's in the lineup. 11.4% barrels, 47.4% hard hits, but it only translates to 5 home runs and 169 plate appearances, a 146 ISO. So infrequent pop from Higgy. So this one goes Verlander, Mets bats, Yankees bats, Domingo Lemon. Joker's enthusiastic about it. Can you go lie down, please? Come on. You're bothering everybody. This one's got some weather in it as well. Seemed like it was more likely as the storms are, moving north and cycling out like northeastward toward Boston. It seemed more likely that this one was going to clear earlier than the other ones, according to the reports I read earlier in the day. But it's also the Nationals. They're the least predictable team in baseball when it comes to these rainout situations. So it's kind of a pain in the ass there. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. I do expect this one's going to play. I think it's going to play clean. I think we're going to be okay with it. Andrew Jennison is in the chat. Says he almost shipped with Colorado stack last night till Chaz hit that homer to tie it. It sucks. Would have been a nice one to hit with on Colorado there and going up against all that Corbin ownership. That was a good both-sided spot. It's a good example of like it was believable enough that Corbin could have a good day, and it was certainly a targetable spot because we know that Corbin is lousy and is super targetable on the mound. So it was interesting to see how that one started out kind of well for Corbin and then completely fell apart and the Rockies blew it up. I think this spot's got that kind of potential again today. Trevor Williams going for the Nats, Austin Gomber going for the Rockies. I don't really see much need to go to either one of these pitchers on a very deep slate. 15.3% strikeouts for Gomber, 17%. I almost said 98%. That would be worth going to. 17% strikeouts for Trevor Williams. Both have made 20 starts. Both have moderately reliable depth when things are going right, but things don't really go that right all that often. A 4.98 xFIP for Williams, a 4.88 for Gomber. Neither one is completely inept on the mound. They're both capable of putting up okay starts, but they both allow too much premium contact. They don't strike out enough. 44.9% hard hits, 9.6% barrels, 4.94% home runs for Gomber, 10.2% barrels, 39.1% hard hits, 4.60% home runs for Williams. This could be another slugfest in DC today. I hope this game plays. I think it's worth getting the bats on both sides. Rockies side of things, Jurickson Profar, Ezekiel Tovar. You guys know which one I prefer out of those two. It's Tovar at shortstop by pretty wide margin. I just think he should be probably leading off for this team. Let's see if he can get to a good on-base percentage. Right now, he's only at 293 on base, so I get why he doesn't lead off. But we know that Jurickson Profar is not going to suddenly turn into a good player. He's getting on at a 321 clip and has a 76 WRC plus for the season. They're just wasting plate appearances there up top. He can provide infrequent stats, 7 home runs, 1 stolen base in 390 plate appearances. Wow, congratulations. 3,400, 2,600. He's cheap to bolt onto Rocky stacks. You should use Jurickson Profar a few times across Rocky stacks. Don't take me wrong, but Tovar's the better player. 9 home runs, 5 stolen bases, only a 77 WRC plus, so he hasn't been much better, but I believe there's a little bit more talent there. McMahon on the correct side of splits for him should come roaring back with some power. 4,100, 2,900, 15 home runs for him, a 201 ISO. Totally worth going to. No Chris Bryant, no CJ Cron again in the lineup. That kind of is a downgrade for the Rockies side. Those are 2 big-time power bats. You'd like to see them in the batting order. 3,200, 2,900 for Randall Grichuk is definitely worth going to. 309, 368, 482, a 115 WRC plus. If you're going to Rockies, you definitely want to include Grichuk. You definitely want to include Nolan Jones. 3,900, 3,100, hit his 9th home run last season. Last night, 9th home run of the season last night. A 235 ISO, a 121 WRC plus. He's been terrific in his 167 opportunities. Big strikeout rate, 34.7%, but probably their best hitter right now. Elias Diaz, Michael Toglia, Alan Trejo, Brenton Doyle, mix and match type guys throughout the lineup. Nobody all that productive. Everybody below average by WRC plus for the season in a variety of sample sizes. Everybody's very cheap. Doyle at the bottom of the lineup has 7 home runs, 14 steals, but only a 51 WRC plus. That's kind of good perspective for that entire group. Diaz is probably the best of the group at 85 WRC plus, 10 home runs, and he's a catcher. So if you need a cheap catcher, if you're building out a full Rocky stack, you could definitely get away with spending only $4,000 at catcher on DK and just using Diaz as part of that group. National side of things, they're much, much better against left-handed pitching as we've seen all season. Let's see what we've got. Yana VXB says, "Hi, Terry. Found you through Gundacker. Loving the breakdowns. Definitely helped me build lineups better." That's awesome to hear. I appreciate that, Yana. Welcome. Glad you found us through Gun. I always appreciate Gun and everything that he's done to help me out getting started here with doing my shows and the content here. We're going to have to coordinate something to get on the show sometime soon together. We were talking about that I think in my Discord yesterday, and we also wish Gun well because he broke his nose falling through a wrestling ring, as we talked about yesterday. But yeah, Yana, that's awesome. Welcome, and I appreciate that. Nationals, like I just said, better against left-handed pitching. Some of the breakdowns in the article. CJ Abrams has been catching fire a little bit. He's up to a 96 WRC plus, 10 home runs, 19 steals. He's been better against lefties of late as well, 3,500, 3,200. Very playable shortstop. Lane Thomas, their best overall player, 16 home runs on the season. Half of them have come in 135 plate appearances against lefties. A 186 WRC plus, a 288 ISO against left-handed pitching to lead the team. Excellent, excellent option in Lane Thomas. Heimer Candelario, league average WRC plus at exactly 100 overall over the season. 16 home runs as a righty against against left-handed pitching. Up to a league average 100 WRC plus against lefties. One of their better performers overall. 3 of his 16 home runs as a righty against lefties. He's hitting for more power this season against righties, but he's capable against lefties at this point. He's not a complete disaster. Joey Meneses, decent triple slash, 6 home runs and 91 WRC plus and 401, 5.4% barrel rate, a 40.3% hard hit rate on the season, but hasn't done a ton. 3% below average for run creation against lefties, only a 133 ISO. He's playable in the middle of the lineup, but he's not a great option. He's just a cheap bat that has a good hit tool. He hasn't been on theme with all the crazy production they've provided against lefties, but I do think he's very playable. Kiebert's very much on theme against lefties. Productive 9.2% strikeout rate overall, 5.9% walk rate isn't great, but he just puts the ball in play like crazy for only 3,400, 2,800. I think he's playable on both sites. He's got a 120 WRC plus, has struck out only 5.1% of the time in 98 plate appearances against lefties this season. And as we've talked about a bunch of times, has some sneaky power lurking. He's 11 home runs and a 151 ISO, and I think some upside for more based on his X slug. Stone Garrett is good against lefties. Michael Chavis has a 202 ISO for his career against lefties and plays 2 positions for 2,000 on DK, 3 positions for 2,100 on FanDuel. Only 1 home run in 56 plate appearances this year, but definite upside. Riley Adams has been the team's best player for run creation in a very small sample, 193 WRC plus, a 308 ISO, and 3 home runs, but only 44 plate appearances against lefties. So we don't want to get crazy about it, but it is a lot of production for a second catcher in the lineup for only 2,900, 2,700 against left-handed pitching this year. Alex Call's also been productive against lefties. So I think top to bottom, the Nationals are oddly playable in this spot against a lousy lefty. So I would go Nationals bats, Rockies bats, and no real love for either pitcher. If I had to, I would trust the model. I would go Trevor Williams slightly ahead of Gomber, but I wouldn't really need either one of these pitchers. At most, they're value darts, and I don't think they even warrant that much attention. Rolling right along. Chuck, yeah, it seems like Adams hits a home run against every lefty. Yeah, it's a limited sample, but I mean, he has been good. I don't know that it is sustainable. I don't know that it extends. Shannon says kind of interested in Cobb against the A's in San Francisco, blowing up my favorite pitching spot of the day. Love that spot. Burns has been doing what he's supposed to for sure. Yeah, Corbin Burns has pulled things together too. We'll talk about him in a sec. I think this one is pretty targetable for the Guardian side of things. We've got Aaron Savali on the bump. 7,200 is a great price for Savali going up against this Royals lineup here. 19.2% strikeouts. He's not a big blow him away type of a pitcher. I question his absolute ceiling on FanDuel. Like, I think he's more, that projection is around his ceiling. That mid-30s type of a FanDuel score is around his ceiling today. $9,300, it's kind of a hefty price tag to pay. There's definite upside against the Royals, though. I mean, they've been feeding strikeouts to opposing pitchers. They're non-threatening in terms of their run creation abilities. A little bit of power potential. We saw Sal hit a home run last night. He's got an 11.38 tonight. Bobby Witt obviously has some power, but they're just a bad low-end lineup. And Savali's a talented guy on the mound. He dropped about 5 percentage points in strikeout rate from last year, so he was better for K's last year with 24 and change strikeout rate. So a little bit of additional potential. Maybe he cracks through the 40 mark in FanDuel scoring, but I just love him at price on the DK slate. 7,200. He doesn't need to have a very big game on this slate to be a very effective SP2 option there. So I really like that spot for Savali. At the same time, really want to attack Zach Greinke with some of these Guardians bats. They've been coming to life. That's not why I want to attack Zach Greinke. I'll just always throw bats at Zach Greinke. 16% strikeouts, a 4.42% super targetable home run rate on the season, a 5.40 ERA, a 4.44 xFIP. The only thing he does well is keep guys off base via the walk, 3.7% walk rate. If that was a little higher, if his whip was a little higher, he would just be unplayably bad in a real life sense. Like, he would just be out of the league. That's the only thing really keeping him going right now. So I'm happy to target that with a team that doesn't strike out very much, with a team that knows how to put bat on ball, is enthusiastic about putting the ball in play anyway, and has been coming to life a little bit. Stephen Kwan up to a 100 WRC plus to save his season. 4 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 271, 342. Continues to need to get on base a little bit more, but at least respectable at league average for run creation. Ahmed Rosario, long way to go. 3 home runs, 9 stolen bases, a 100 ISO, and an 85 WRC plus. At least he's got a 42.3% hard hit rate. He's a guy we expect to have mid-range home runs, mid-range stolen base upside. So I do think that Ahmed Rosario is playable. He's cheap at shortstop. 3,900, 2,800 makes him very playable. 5,339 for Jose Ramirez, and then 4,000, 3,500 for Josh Naylor. Very cheap for the two guys who have basically carried the team all season. 14 home runs for Ramirez, 15 for Naylor in a great season. 306, 344, 508, 201 ISO, 128 WRC plus for him. Nice turnaround to his season after a slow, first 150 or so plate appearances. Jake, I do mostly agree. It looks like a pay up for pitching type slate. There's a lot of good pitching for price, but there's a couple value spots that we'll talk about that I like, and on DK particularly, Savali is certainly one of them. Continue to go down that Guardians lineup. Andres Jimenez, definitely a playable part. Up to 9 home runs, 15 steals, a 94 WRC plus. Still a down season overall, but kind of turning things around, hopefully. Hopefully it continues. It's not necessarily predictive that he's had a couple good games, but I think good player showing signs of life, we kind of want to have faith in it. And he's very cheap at second base, 3,600, 2,800 for his upside, for his ceiling, his abilities. Josh Bell, sucks that you have to decide between him and Josh Naylor on DK. You don't have to make that decision on FanDuel. They're both first basemen. 2,800, you can definitely go to him. 9.6% barrels, 42.4% hard hits, 11 home runs, up to a 102 WRC plus. Brennan, Straw, Bo Naylor, mix and match parts down the bottom of the lineup. Naylor's got a little bit of pop, 2 home runs and 74 plate appearances. Cheap catcher option, but they're not great through the bottom third. 1 through 6, I kind of like the opportunity for the Guardians here, though. Yep. Implied total was 5+ in Vegas. Chuck says Abbott is like top 20 in pitching WAR, and he's only thrown 9 games. Maybe it's top 25. Yeah, he's overperformed expectations in terms of his xFIP, some of the underlying metrics as we've talked about each time he's made a start. But he's actually leading my pitching board today, Chuck. So I like the spot for Abbott as well. I like both sides of the pitching duel in that game that we'll get to in just a minute. But yeah, Abbott has been, in terms of where our model likes him, we've been some hit and miss spots. Once we started liking him, then it was he had that clunker start, and then he had one other one that wasn't great. But there's plenty of reason to believe in the potential in this spot for the kid against the Brewers. Zach Greinke going up against the Guardians here, no real reason to roster him. 5,600 if you wanted to throw a value dart at him, and you could, just on the idea of maybe he pitches 6 clean innings and finds his way to a win. But it's really, really, really thin. Royals bats against Savali with the idea of a little bit of contact, a little bit of power upside. You can grab a few shares. I would take Bobby Witt, Nick Pratto, Sal Perez as the must roster bats. And then I would probably include like Michael Massey from later down the lineup at second base for really cheap. I'd rather have him than Kyle Isbell from 2 spots higher. I prefer to take a second baseman off this team for a cheap price if that's what I was doing. And I believe in the power upside for Massey a little bit more. Michael Garcia would be the other good option off the top. 279, 329, 386, 95 WRC plus, and 278 plate appearances. Obviously correlates with Witt, Prado, and Perez a little bit more than Massey does. But I don't love him at third base for that 3,300. Third base shortstop for 2,900 is a little better on FanDuel. But I kind of like the cheap lefty bat later in the lineup there if I was stacking Royals. But I wouldn't be stacking that many Royals. Not a good lineup. Drew Waters, Nicky Lopez, kind of afterthoughts. Edward Olivares has a little bit of power and speed potential. Sal obviously has major power. Bobby Witt obviously has major power and is better for DFS than he has been in real life. Below average for real life for everybody in the lineup for run creation. Not a great lineup. Not a great team. I think we fire away with Savali shares. So, Savali on DK. Guardians bats overall. Savali on FanDuel. Nothing on the other side, really. Royals and Zach Greinke tied at the bottom. Josie Gray, 14th on ESPN for WAR Steal, is 8th. Stroman 3rd. Not surprising. Some good performances by those guys. Let me see what we've got here. Let's see if we got some lineups. No lineups yet. We do have this pitching situation changed yet again. It's now John Schreiber on the mound to start the game for the Red Sox. It's a situation where Brian Bayo was supposed to make this start, and he went back to the Dominican Republic over the weekend for the birth of his first kid. So he's on the paternity list. They used Pivetta 3 days ago in a 1-inning relief appearance, not a bulk relief appearance. And it was supposed to be him in the bulk relief spot behind that other kid. So I put Pivetta in here. It does look all right. So it looks like Pavetta's still supposed to at least make a few innings appearance in bulk relief here. So I'm sticking with Pivetta. I don't think he's really an option here at 6,600, 7,700, particularly with the idea that he threw an inning just 3 days ago. Probably shaves that extra inning off the top of him. He has been good in this bulk relief situation, 29.5% strikeout rate over 8 starts and 76 innings, but has given up some power, 12.6% barrels, 44.7% hard hits, 91.7 miles an hour of exit velo, 3.73% home runs, and he's facing the hardest hitting best lineup in baseball. I really like the upside for the Atlanta Braves. I don't like the upside for Nick Pivetta or whatever else comes out of the Red Sox bullpen. We've also got the questions about weather in this one, so I think that kind of takes me out of consideration for Charlie Morton as well. 93, 97. Charlie wasn't really projecting great. He's been okay. 3.36 ERA, a 3.91 xFIP. The walks are up a little bit at 9.7%. Home runs and hard hits haven't been bad. 2.1% home runs, 36% hard hits, 25.2% strikeouts. Basically a Charlie Morton season. But at price, with some weather considerations in play, with the Red Sox in Fenway Park, just doesn't seem like a spot where I need to extend myself to try and get to Charlie Morton when he doesn't project well. If he was carrying like a 30-plus projection, I'd be like, all right, I guess I'm going to have some. It just doesn't look great, so I'm not going to really go out of my way for it. It wouldn't shock me if Charlie went out, pitched 6 clean innings, handful of strikeouts, and had a good game. If he's going to be DFS relevant, I think he's got to do more than that on this slate, and that's where I run into question marks, so I don't necessarily need to go to Morton. Definite enthusiasm up and down for the Braves. Once again, leading the slate by projections, leading the slate by power, leading Vegas by implied run total. Just a monster team this season. They play 1 through 9. This lineup is still the projected version, hasn't been confirmed yet, but this is the everyday version. Acuna, Albies, Riley, Olsen, Murphy. If you can afford that as a 5-man, I don't know what else you're putting in your lineup, but good luck to you. I guess it's all dead minimums from there. I'm not even sure if that works on the DK slate. Little easier to get to them on FanDuel, but not by much. A couple of those guys in the high to mid 4s now, high 3s. The bottom of the lineup helps a lot. After Sean Murphy, you get Marcelo Ozuna, Eddie Rosario, both of whom have been really good this year. 18 homers for Ozuna, 15 for Rosario, plus Orlando Arcia at shortstop. 2,700, 4,000 on both sites. Very playable part. 287, 340, 440, 11% better than average creating runs. 10 homers on the season. And Michael Harris, probably the best 9-hitter in all of baseball. 9 home runs, 12 stolen bases, a 105 WRC+. Apologies to Leody Taveras. He's the best 9-hitter in baseball this season. But Michael Harris on talent is probably better, and he's been right there for the last month and change. So 1 through 9, as always, very, very playable for the Braves. If they sub somebody out and somebody else is in the lineup, he's probably also pretty playable. Boston side, Jarren Duran. Duran's been elite. I looked up the leadoff specific numbers in the article. In the leadoff role, overall, let's say, overall, 317, 367, 514 with a 136 WRC plus. In the leadoff role, 374, 406, 659 with a 187 WRC plus, a 286 ISO, 3 homers, 8 steals in 96 plate appearances since landing in that leadoff spot, or when he's been in that leadoff spot. So he's a really, really good option for them in the leadoff role. That on-base percentage goes up by nearly 40 points in the spot. Lefty hitter, I really like him ahead of Justin Turner, Masataka Yoshida, Rafael Devers, Adam Duvall. Then you reset the table down here with Alex Verdugo for the bottom of the lineup. Excellent hit tool, very good on base skills for him. Tristan Casas, very, very good on base skills at 351, a 14% walk rate with all his power, 14.5% barrels, 47.2% hard hits, 218 ISO, up to 14 home runs. Watch out for Tristan Casas second half. I'm telling you guys, it's coming. 2,800, 3,000, put him in your lineups. First base on both sites, very easy to get to. Really like the 1 through 7 for the Red Sox here. Even against Charlie Morton, I like the spot a lot. I don't think they'll be all that popular, so I think they're worth getting to. Connor Wong and Yu Chang from the bottom are bolt-on parts. Depending on what comes out of the confirmed version of the lineup, you might get a bit of a different bottom end, but 1 through 7 should be basically intact in some order or other. Devers is underpriced, by the way, 4,900 on DK. That's way too cheap for Rafi Devers. 39 on FanDuel is acceptable given his a bit of underperformance this year. But again, the barrels are up. The premium contact is all up. The power's still there, 24 homers, 260 ISO. Just is a bit of a dip in his triple slash. 404 plate appearances. I'm not going to sweat it. Duvall with all his righty power, 7 home runs and 153 plate appearances, a 257 ISO. Plenty of pop for him as well. So, yeah, really like the lineups on both sides. I think I'm going to forgo pitching in general in this one. Charlie's playable, but not great. Don't like the price. Don't like the ballpark, the weather situation. Pivetta, I don't really see it, given the question mark about even making an appearance, let alone the innings cap, and just all the upside for the Braves. So, ton of enthusiasm about the Braves. They're on top. Like the Red Sox quite a bit, 1 through 7 especially. They rank out ahead of either one of the pitchers. Another good spot for pitching. Both of these guys at decent prices. Pablo a little bit expensive at 10-4, 10,000, but a great projection. Kirby actually a little underpriced on the DK slate, 8,700. 99 feels about right for him, only because he's got a 21.7% strikeout rate to go with all his excellent numbers. So not a premium strikeout guy in George Kirby. So that makes this make a little bit of sense, but obviously projects out really well and has a premium strikeout matchup against the Minnesota Twins. Let me see if I've got these lineups. We do have the Mariners, so I'll drop that in. Cade Marlowe making another appearance for the Mariners. So I think we're going to pitching on both sides in this one. It's another situation with these two teams like we've seen over the past week when they're 2 series. Both lineups project okay. Both lineups are playable. Both lineups have power upside. But both pitchers outpace the lineups, and both pitchers are the higher priorities than the hitting in this matchup. Pablo's been great this season, 30.2% strikeout rate over 121 2/3, 20 starts, gives you very good depth, limits home run power, 2.98% home runs on 35.5% hard hits, only 87.5 miles an hour of exit velo, 4.22 ERA but a 3.50 xFIP, and again 30.2% strikeout rate, 14.5% swinging strike rate. Great season from him, going up against a team with a 25.8% confirmed swinging strikeout rate in that lineup. That's kind of helped by Ty France, J.P. Crawford, 2 non-threatening hitters. France not having a good season. So the 2 guys who don't strike out don't really do a ton other than provide some correlated scoring. All the power bats strike out way too much for Seattle. Really like the spot for Pablo to succeed. Doesn't project quite as high as Kirby on the other side. Kirby's main attribute is limiting walks. 2.3% walks is just outrageous. Second year in the league, 2.3% walk rate. His first year, 4.1%. He was better for strikeouts last year. So this lends some belief to the idea that he'll find some additional strikeouts against this free swinging Twins group. Last time out, Kirby went. Thought I had it in the lineup. Maybe I didn't. I thought I went through and put the last week's episode versions of these performances here. Maybe I didn't. I don't like getting carried away with the box score hunting, but I do think, like I talked about yesterday with this matchup, it's not predictive, but it's representative in a lot of cases. Lopez went 5 innings last week, allowed 2 runs on 6 hits, struck out 7 of 23 Mariners. I think he's got upside beyond that. So like I'm saying, it's not predictive, but that's representative of him in a short start, what he's likely to do. I think it's somewhat representative of he's got additional upside past that, but it's not necessarily saying that he's going to do that tonight or he's going to be better than that in one direction or the other. Similar story for Kirby in terms of his upside based on anything he did last week. It more comes from just being a talented pitcher, being a guy who limits opportunities on the bases by checking free passes, by keeping guys off with a 1.04 whip. Just a very, very good pitcher. So enthusiasm about the Kirby spot. I like him a little bit better given the, slightly lower price by $100 on the FanDuel slate. Significantly lower, $8,700 versus $10,400 on the DK slate. That gives him an edge. If you are going to bats, J.P. Crawford, decent leadoff hitter, good correlated scoring play along with Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez. Julio slips down to the 5 spot in the Mariners lineup today. That's an interesting move for them. Drops his power behind some of those other power hitters, but if they clear the bases, I'm not sure what opportunity that gives him for run creation. Not a great spot in the lineup for him. Hitting ahead of Mike Ford, Ty France, Cade Marlowe, Colton Wong. Kind of mix and match pieces down there. Ford's had an interesting year. 11 homers and 125 plate appearances. Still very cheap. Easy to get to. Probably a better option at first base right now, given the cheap pricing, than Ty France, who's been just underwhelming this season. 7 home runs this year, hit 20 last year, and had a much better hit tool last year. Just hasn't been productive, hasn't really created runs. 99 WRC plus on the season. All of Suarez, Raleigh, Teoscar, Julio, Mike Ford strike out quite a bit, but also have pretty significant power upside. They're playable in mix and match form, but a low priority stack for me. Same thing on the other side. Carlos Correa, Edward Julian, Max Kepler. No Byron Buxton in the projected lineup. He's obviously playable if he was in the lineup. I forget if he's on the IL or not. I know he's banged up. Did they put him on the IL? Anybody know? I'll check the chat in a second. Either way, he's not in the projected. Matt Wallner still for 2,000, 2,300. Some believable upside there. Max Kepler, 2,800. He would be a priority if I'm building twin stacks. I basically prioritize these 2 cheap bats, these 2 guys, and then I mix in my Kirilloff shares, my Castro shares, my Larnach, maybe some Joey Gallo from the bottom of the lineup. They're very, very cheap. It's easy to get to Twins bats. They're totally inexpensive. There is some believable upside for power through the lefties. You've got stolen base guys like Castro in the lineup, so not great. They haven't been really all that outstanding for run production. But there's a lot of believable power. A lot of strikeouts, but a lot of power. So, Kirby slightly edging out Pablo. Then probably the Mariners slightly edging out the Twins. I think. Maybe. Yeah, I think the Mariners slightly edging out the Twins. Where do they land on the stacks board? Let's see. Seattle's 11th by projection and Minnesota's 13th, but Minnesota's got a stronger value mark on the DK slate. Seattle beats them out on the FanDuel slate for value. Seattle's got better home run marks. So yeah, Seattle favored a little bit over Minnesota, but neither one really a high priority, just kind of mid-level type stacks. Referred to this one a little bit in terms of the pitching projections. I like the spot. Buxton's on paternity leave also. All right. There you go. Dave Schneider says Kirby over Lopez all day with enthusiasm. I like that. 10Ks last time, Shannon. Thank you. Couldn't remember the strikeout total, but he's just very good. It's less caring about what he did last week and more just very, very good pitcher going up against a high strikeout team that has limited potential at the plate.
Chuck Deuces like Snell. I like that spot also. I think he's a premium option. This one, we'll talk about this one first. 9,500, 10-8 for Andrew Abbott. Top of the board. 26.8% strikeout rate. 4.62 xFIP, though, under his 2.10 ERA. That's where we get into probably outperforming what he's actually doing on the mound. 91 miles an hour of exit velo on 44.2% hard hits, 9.4% barrels, a 3.76% home run rate. xFIP normalizes home runs, and that's a pretty high xFIP, and it's significantly higher than the run number. But definitely a good strikeout option. Definitely going up against a team that will feed him some strikeouts. Limiting factor to a hitter like Christian Yelich a little bit in terms of the lefty-lefty, but facing then a ton of righties in this lineup. But they're fairly limited righties. There's not a lot of righties that I really worry about in the Brewers lineup. After like the power on display from William Contreras and Willy Adames, it gets really, really thin around like Owen Miller, Andrew Monasterio, Brian Anderson, Tyrone Taylor. There's not a lot to love in that Brewers lineup. There's a lot of good pricing. There's a lot of positional flex on the FanDuel slate. So if you are rostering a ton of Andrew Abbott, which I think I'm going to have a pretty decent amount of, I will also hedge off with some Brewers shares. I think that's worth doing, especially because they're such a strong value play. And there are some bets that I think are at least okay. I like Christian Yelich quite a bit, even with the lefty-lefty. Contreras is a serviceable catcher, better option on DK. 29 on FanDuel, he's playable because you don't worry about sacrificing first base with no Rowdy Tellez in the lineup. You get Owen Miller with first base eligibility, but he also fits in two other spots on the FanDuel slate for 2,500. So a lot of mix and match movable parts, but nobody that I really want to prioritize, really want to go out of my way for. So they're just kind of an also-ran option against a pitcher that I'm going to have a ton of, just a hedge position. Corbin Burnes has come roaring back to life in his last, let's see. I know I put it in the article. Let me see here. 13 strikeouts against these same Reds 2 starts ago, and then a 10 strikeout game in which he allowed 2 hits and walked only 1 over 8 innings against Philadelphia in his most recent outing. He's faced this Cincinnati team a couple times already and has been pretty successful against them this season. So I think there's plenty of upside for Corbin Burnes. Not that I'm basing it on that, just basing it on who Corbin Burnes has been over time, the fact that he seems to have found it on the mound. There was a piece that I wanted to refer to, but I forgot to look back up, and I don't want to get it wrong. So it was just something about change several starts ago in his pitch mix, with the expectation that it might be effective, and it apparently has been pretty effective for him. But I don't have it in my head, and I forgot to look it back up. So if somebody's familiar with what I'm referring to, you can feel free to throw it into the chat there. But Burnes did make a hang on. He did make a specific change that is probably resulting in some of this advanced output. So I think it's a sustained trait. 33.6 in the FanDuel projections for 10-3 is perfectly fine. He's cheap on DK at 9-2. Cheaper than Andrew Abbott. That just shouldn't be the case. Particularly when they're pitching as like essentially the same, with Burnes exceeding the output on the xFIP, a little behind the rookie in the strikeout rate this season, but being Corbin Burnes and the guy who won the Cy Young 2 years ago, should probably have a little bit more respect for him on the DK slate than putting him behind Abbott there. Obviously, the strikeouts are down 30.5% last year, 35.6% 2 years ago, down to 25.4. The swinging strikes have dipped by 3 percentage points, but pulling it together, pitcher I totally believe in. I want to go to Reds bats. They project out pretty well. The power doesn't project out great because Burnes isn't lousy at giving up power. 32.3% hard hits, only 6% barrels, 86.1 miles an hour of exit velo. So I'm not really targeting him for power, but I'm targeting him for some run creation, probably some low ownership, some players that I still like, some speed upside. There's always the ability to hit some home runs. So I will get to some red stacks, but it'll be a little bit more limited than, like, say, yesterday, where I had tons. Ellie off the top, hit a bomb yesterday for his 6th of the year. Almost had 2 yesterday. Got robbed at the wall by Joey Wiemer in a pretty nice catch, but hit a blast over the. There's like a car in the outfield, and he hit it like out over that in dead center field yesterday. Just total bomb. Superstar caliber player. His price came down a little bit, 5,800, 3,700, so he's a little bit more affordable now. There's a lot of multi-position, a lot of ways to flex these guys around, so I like building with this team too. I think having him, having Matt McClain, having Spencer Steer, And then you get like Joey Votto, Jonathan India. There's just a lot of guys that fit in well together and fit into different spots in the lineup where you can say, all right, I'm going to use these guys and then premium outfielders from this other team, or I'm going to get 2 outfielders with 2 infielders from this squad and then mix and match my way through the other team with the 2 corner spots. It's really a flexible, dynamic lineup that way. Matt McClain's been a star, 5,900, 3,900, totally worth it. 10 home runs on the season, 8 steals, a 135 WRC plus to lead the team. Jake Fraley, Jonathan India, Joey Votto, tons of power there. Lefty, righty, lefty trio. 4,700, 4,300, 4,800 on DK. Low prices for all those bats. Productive guys. 14 homers, 16 steals for Fraley, 14 and 12 for India. And then Votto's got his 8 home runs and 106 plate appearances since he came back. 16.9% barrel rate. Just been mashing since he came back. Below the Mendoza line at 178, 302, 478, but a 300 ISO. We're really only looking to Joey for long balls at this point. Spencer Steer, Will Benson, Luke Malley, playable parts at the bottom. Will Benson's been really good. We've talked about him a few times recently. 6 homers, 10 steals, a 231 ISO, 167 plate appearances. Plays a hell of an outfield. Really like the Reds from 1 through 9, basically when going to Reds. 1 through 8 at least. Malley's like a bolt-on part, 2,300. If you build a lot of red stacks, I can include him on DK. Don't really need him that much though. So yeah, Andrew Abbott, Corbin Burns, like 1-1A right there together. Then Reds bats, then Brewers bats, I think. Well, maybe flip those or call those a draw. I like the pitching better than I like the hitting either way in this one, but with a little bit more power potential for the Brewers and a little bit more thought that like we're not going up against the Cy Young winner, we might be going up against the lefty who's pitching a little bit above his head. Maybe I'll put the Brewers a little bit ahead. So Brewers slightly ahead of the Reds in terms of the bats, but both low priority bats, not super high priorities. Rangers and the Astros. Let's see if we got the Astros lineup. Looks like we do. Oops. Hang on. Come on. Oh, is it the Rangers that I missed? My bad. Copy the wrong lineup. I needed the Rangers, not the Astros. I think it's the exact same one we had in the projected. But we'll find out. Nope. Mitch Garver sneaking into the lineup for the Rangers. That's a nice little playable spot. Sneaky little second catcher bat there. I don't think I want to go to any pitching in this one. I've got Owen White slotted in still because I think he's going to see the most innings. It's kind of a toss-up. They've got somebody named Jerry Rodriguez making the start. He was a rookie call-up, probably going an inning or two, serving as an opener, not a traditional start. I don't think I want any part of going to him. It might be Owen White, who was initially listed as the bulk reliever. Okay, this is about the Rangers, but it's not the Dodgers acquiring Enrique Hernandez from the Red Sox. Owen White was initially listed as the bulk reliever, but then they said later on, the other way around. Cody Bradford initially, then they listed Owen White. Now they're going back and forth. So depends where you look. Long story short, I don't think you need any Texas Rangers pitching today. I think you can fire away with Astros bats. And then I don't really see much need to go to JP France on a deep slate against the Rangers. It's not like he's discounted. 8,100, 8,400 is probably high for a kid with a 3.13 ERA, but a 4.55 xFIP, a 17.1% strikeout rate, 9.5% swinging, 3.11% home run rate allowed. Just seems like a target to me. I know that the Rangers are without Corey Seager, but they got Adolis Garcia back, which is a big bump to the already productive lineup. I was planning on playing them without Garcia in the lineup. With him in the lineup, I'm definitely going to play them. So I like the spot for the Rangers. I like the spot for the Astros. It's bats all day. No Jordan Alvarez again for the Astros. Unfortunately, they keep on rumoring that he's going to be back in the lineup and then not providing a Jordan Alvarez for us. That kind of sucks. It also sucks that Alex Bregman on DK, it costs $6,000. That's a little bit high. I know he's Alex Bregman, but we're talking about a player with 16 home runs, which is fine, but only a 170 ISO. A 116 WRC plus is good, not great. 254, 346, 424 triple slash. 5.7% barrels, 35.5% hard hits. I guess they just wanted to bake another expensive player into that lineup while Alvarez was out and couldn't justify it for anybody else. But that's really high. 3,300 on FanDuel is correct. 4,600 for Kyle Tucker. Totally correct on both sites. Star player, 17 homers, 18 stolen bases, 46% better than average creating runs. Great option late in the lineup with Chas McCormick. He's been dynamite this season. 282, 371, 531, a 249 ISO, 50% better than average creating runs. 13 homers, 11 steals in 241 plate appearances. Still only costs 4,900, 3,600. Like that option a lot. Jolks is playable. Maldonado's playable. Jainer Diaz has been good. 4,500, 2,800. He'll be the more popular of the two catchers, but very playable for cheap late in the lineup. Dubon, mix and match kind of a guy. Correlated scoring, 3 positions on FanDuel for cheap. Pena, not great. So it's really, priority bats are these 3 guys. Tucker, Bregman, Abreu, and then everybody else is kind of mix and match, but they're good mix and match parts. They're productive enough mix and match parts, and it's a good spot against the bullpen game. Rangers side of things, you're going to Marcus Semien off the top. Travis Jankowski hitting second. I mentioned it in the article. It seems to me like while Corey Seager's out, it would make a lot more sense to have Travis Jankowski in his 407 on base in a small 190 plate appearance sample. Have him lead off ahead of Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien's got a lot of power, knows how to drive the ball, doesn't get on base as consistently as the other guy does, doesn't have the same stolen base upside as the other guy does. Maybe you put Jankowski ahead of Semien. What do I know? Anyway, you've got Semien up top. You've got Jankowski. Jankowski's a correlated scoring play. You'll look for him to get on base, continue the trend leading into Nathaniel Lowe, who's been very good this season. 284, 375, 448. 30% better than average creating runs. 11 homers on the season. Still only cost $3,900 now. $3,400 on FanDuel. That DK price has come down as his production's gone up. So that's very easy to get to. Helps you discount or average down rather the price of Adolis Garcia of Marcus Semien. Garcia's a monster. 24 home runs on the season, a 252 ISO, 131 WRC plus. Josh Young hit his 20th home run of the season yesterday. Keep getting reminded by my buddy Lou that I passed on Josh Young. Probably because I remind Lou every time that Luis Robert hits a home run. Lou's the one who traded him to me. So it's tit for tat. But yeah, Young was my biggest swing and miss of the season at the start of the year, I think. Did not expect him to improve the strikeout rate as dramatically as he has. Great season for him. Jonah Heim, Ezekiel Duran, Mitch Garver, Leody Taveras. That's a fantastic bottom 4. You could play that bottom 4 on its own. That group of hitters could be a top 4. If they were on the Royals, let's say, that would be the top 4 on the Royals. Probably in a different order, but that would be the top 4. They're just really, really good. Heim, 14 home runs as a catcher. Mitch Garver, 4 home runs in 115 plate appearances. Stout catcher bat, 11.4% barrels, 44.3% hard hits for 3,300, 2,600. Duran plays 3 positions on FanDuel for only 3,000. He's hitting 297, 339, 509, 32% better than average creating runs. There's nothing not to like top to bottom, 1 through 9 in the Rangers lineup. So bats on both sides. Probably Rangers over Astros, just because I like the lineup better. I think there's better players, better options, and it plays like 1 through 9, where the Astros definitely don't. So Rangers bats, Astros bats, neither pitching situation. 5:12, making decent time. Hoping for like a half hour left. If we punch out at 6, it's not a disaster. I was hoping for 5:45. I won't shortchange you guys on these last 5 games, but if I could get out by 5:45, I'd be doing my lineups a little bit of a favor, I think, on a big slate. Sweeper, thank you, solid. Yes. It was an article that I read. It's one of those people that I follow that's dynamite pitching analysis and has, a couple hundred followers on Twitter, but there's some really, really sharp people out there. And I believe that was the pitch that I was reading about. Could be. Travis says the regression monster is real for Andrew Abbott. Yeah. Full disclosure, as everybody who watches the show on a daily basis probably knows, I don't think I've gotten Andrew Abbott right yet. When the models liked him, he's had clunkers. When we haven't liked him, he's gone out and been dominant. But I truly do believe that there's reason to expect regression. There's reason in that xFIP, in the power marks that he's allowed. But I do think there's plenty of upside against this Brewers lineup today. I just don't like that Brewers lineup that much. I know they're in first place ahead of that Reds team, but that's a really flawed lineup, in my opinion, from a baseball perspective. So White Sox and the Cubbies battle for Chicago on the south side today. Kyle Hendricks, Michael Kopech. There's realistic upside for either one of the pitchers on the right day. I just don't know that we really want to mess with it too much. I'm seeing a decent amount of power potential for the White Sox going up against Hendo, who doesn't really have a ton to offer on the mound except for clean innings. 3.38 ERA, but a 4.63 xFIP. Only walks 3.8, but only strikes out 16.1 over his 11 starts, 64 innings. You can see that he projects okay. That's a projection based on a handful of clean innings and a decent start, but not like a great one. I think that's a much more playable start on the DK slate rather than on the single starter site. I don't know that I want him on FanDuel. 6,800, I think you could throw a few value darts Hendo's way on DK, but it's not a great spot given the lack of strikeouts, given better strikeout options at similar pricing. Kopech is like on that list of better strikeout options at similar pricing at 7,100 on DK. 25.3% strikeouts on the season, but a lot of short outings. This is a limited projection based on a fairly limited innings projection, but it's kind of in line with what he's been doing. So I'm pretty confident in it. He could go out there and have a great game against the Cubbies. It's not out of the question. 4.29 ERA though, a 5.22 xFIP, giving up 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo and a 4.71% home run rate. I think there's a lot of reason to believe in the Cubbies bats today. So it's more bats focused from me on both sides. I don't think either pitcher as a value dart, like a couple shares as a total low confidence dart, is necessarily a mistake, but I don't really like either spot. Aaron Judge played 5 innings under simulated conditions today at the Yankees complex in Tampa. And proud we are of him. Would rather have him playing innings in the Bronx, even if his toe is a little bit ouchy. Just bring him back. Like, if he can walk, put him in the damn lineup. Not that difficult. So yeah, this one's bats. Mike Tauchman leading off, Nico Horner. It's tough first two spots in the Cubbies lineup there. Tauchman's been good at getting on base, but doesn't really do much. He's kind of fraudulent, more quad A player, but he's cheap. He's easy to get to. You put him in top and hope for some correlated scoring with like Ian Happ, Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki. Happ should probably be the leadoff man at this point. 372 on base is dynamite and is a very real on base percentage for him. Good run creator, 112 WRC plus. Hasn't hit for his usual power this season. You can see the hard hits are down year over year, but a good respectable switch hitter from both sides for cheap pricing. Cody Bellinger's really come to life this season. 319, 369, 549 with a 230 ISO, 44% better than average creating runs, and playing his way off the Cubbies roster. He'll finish the season somewhere else. I'd love to have him on the Yankees. Think that makes a ton of sense, but we'll probably get Randall Grichuk instead, and Cody Bellinger will go to like the Rangers and win the World Series. Suzuki, very playable, 3,200, 2,700. Dansby, if he's back in the lineup, 4,100, 2,900. Very good option at shortstop. Underperforming on the season, still has a 111 WRC plus, but only a 150 ISO, only 10 home runs, 4 steals. That's not a Dansby Swanson-esque season. He's had a lot of seasons in the mid-20s for home runs, handful of stolen bases. Very good shortstop, though. Still a good contact profile. So I'll go to some sneaky shares of Dansby if he's in the lineup. Mastroboni, Chris Morel, Tucker Barnhart at the bottom. Mix and match plays. Obviously, Morel's the target down there. Cheap pricing for a guy with 15 long balls on the season, a 263 ISO. We know that came in one big rush, and then he's kind of cooled off since then. But we know that ceiling does exist. So it's I think it's worth getting to. Chuck just noticed Abbott's FanDuel price. Yeah, 10.8. A little bit high, buddy. Yeah, with no ownership, that enhances the play, especially when he projects out as well as he does. So yet another reason I kind of want to just bite the bullet and go to it. Those high-priced, decent options tend to keep ownership away, and they work out nicely when they hit. You just got to put it together with the right value stack, and you're in business. On the White Sox side, Benintendi has pulled himself together to a 102 WRC plus. He's a slap hitter that needs his teammates to help him score. 3,800 for Timmy Anderson should probably be a little bit lower on DK. 2,600, nice discount for that player at shortstop on FanDuel. He's up to a 56 WRC plus. That was in the 40s last week, so kind of coming together a little, but only 0 home runs and only 10 stolen bases. It's just not a good season for Tim. Kind of a lost year for Tim Anderson. It's a little bit sad. Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Joan Moncada back in the lineup for them. So nice trio there. 3,800, 2,300 for Moncada is a very good price. Not a major source of power for them. 3 home runs on the season, only 232, 279, 370, but a better player in years past and a believably reliable bat for those prices. I like adding him back to the lineup. Andrew Vaughn back in the lineup, 3,600, 2,900. Good, capable right-handed first base bat. Jake Berger slides down, but still has a ton of power in the 8th spot in the lineup. So I actually kind of like Chicago a little bit more now that I'm seeing this confirmed version of the lineup than I did earlier in the day. I like this spot. They're a lot more playable now. This is basically the fully healthy version of this lineup. Colas at 2,200, lefty power. Has only hit 1 home run in the show so far, 128 plate appearances, but we've taken a couple looks at his power upside in the past and what he's done in the minors. So we know there's a little bit of lefty pop hiding at the bottom of the lineup for 2,200. Very, very cheap, easy to get to. Not an ideal wraparound type guy. Doesn't necessarily get on base to correlate back to the top of the lineup, but could hit you a cheap home run. Jasmani Grandal's playable as a catcher. 3,000, 2,300. Only a 99 WRC plus, but still knows how to get himself on base. So yeah, I'm going to go White Sox bats, Cubbies bats, Hendo, then Kopech, but it's very thin on the pitching. I don't really think I'm going to have either one of those pitchers. Cards and the Diamondbacks. Let's see if we got lineups. We do not. Did I have a... Oh, I did have the Cubs lineup, and I didn't put it in. Cubs lineup has most of what we talked about. Tauchman, Horner, Happ, Bellinger, Suzuki, Dansby. Chris Morel hitting 7th, which is a little bit of an uptick from where he was. I think he was 8th. John Gomes catching, so power bat at catcher hitting 8th for the Cubbies, and then Mastroboni hitting 9th. I think I want to target Steven Matz with some Diamondbacks hitters here. 4 guys above the magic number for home run power, including my home run pick of the day, Mr. Evan Longoria. Hopefully he's in the lineup. I like that bat at these prices. I think I'm going to target some Steven Matz. He hasn't been terrible. 22.2% strikeout rate, 3.90 xFIP, a 4.67 ERA. 40% hard hits is a little high, but not terrible. 2.81% home runs. Just a pitcher who gets himself into jams from time to time, has his clunkers from time to time. 5.25 ERA last year with a 3.86% home run rate, 9.2% barrels, is more targetable for power upside. We know that Steven Matz can have his bad games. We also know that he can have his good ones. So 6,300 on the DK slate. I think maybe you can throw a few darts at it if you're inclined, but I don't love the matchup given the low strikeout rates for the Diamondbacks, all the power upside that they're showing. It's not a great spot for them. So not really on my board. 7,400 I think takes him out of play on the FanDuel slate. Wouldn't completely surprise me to see a good but not great kind of a game. 5 strikeouts, 6 innings, a quality start bonus maybe, but gives up a couple of runs. Something like that I think is in play for Steven Matz, but not like a ceiling score. I'd be surprised by a slate winning ceiling must-have type score. 63, maybe he gives you a little bit of enough value. Merrill Kelly on the other side, I definitely think is a little bit more playable. 9,000 on DK is a little pricey. 10.5 on FanDuel is very pricey. Going up against the Cards, a lineup that I like, but he's pitching well. 3.22 ERA, a 3.83 xFIP, 25.7% strikeouts, 2.62% home runs, 40.3% hard hits. So there is a little bit of worry around the contact profile this year, but 12.5% swinging strikes, 1.14 WHIP. He's just been good. I'm happy enough to consider Kelly. I just think he falls by the wayside for me based on price, based on having other pitchers at low ownership at high prices that I think I want to get to more, like the Andrew Abbott spot, and based on facing a Cardinals lineup that I think will land in my lineups a little bit because they're all fairly cheap on the FanDuel slate. Fairly cheap on DK outside of Goldie, who's 61, but that's totally justifiable. So I think I prefer the Card side a little bit. Not really, on the board in Vegas. If I'm looking at the Vegas total, last I checked, 4.39 for them in Vegas. So maybe they fly a little under the radar. Maybe we get the Diamondbacks and Cards a little bit under the radar here. I'd really like that opportunity. I think the Diamondbacks are more likely to be popular. If I'm going to their bats, which I will, Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Christian Walker, obvious names off the top, but definitely don't skip Evan Longoria, 3,600, 2,700 at third base. He's got a team-leading 56.3% hard hit rate, 12.6% barrel rate that also leads the team, 11 home runs in 175 plate appearances, a 268 ISO. He's been mashing when he's been in the lineup for the most part. Strikes out aggressively, 32% strikeouts, but still draws a decent amount of walks, can still correlate with other guys even if he doesn't hit a homer. And I just really like the power potential here. Walker I rave about all the time. All his power upside, 18.3% strikeout rate with 21 home runs is a fantastic combination. Last year it was 19.6% with 36 home runs. Just dynamite player. Gurriel's really cheap at 4,500, 3,000, 15 homers on the season. The triple slash is down a little bit, but I'd rather have his power. I'd rather have the version of him that hits for an okay triple slash and good power and decent run creation. Carroll's obviously turned into a star this season. Ketel Marte is one of the best second basemen in baseball. Emmanuel Rivera's playable from late in the lineup. Decent hit tool, has been a little bit productive. And then the mix and match parts like Jose Herrera at catcher today. If they have Carson Kelly, he's a mix-in part. Jake McCarthy is the best probably option down there. 22 stolen bases. Only 85 WRC plus for him this season. He was expected to do more this year. Expected to hit for a little bit more power in that like 10, 12, 15 home run range. And hasn't really done that. But at least the speed is there. The upside for some stolen bases. Maybe a wraparound play from the bottom of the lineup. Nick Ahmed, mix-in kind of a value guy. On the card side of things, this lineup plays, if it's this form of the lineup, this basically plays 1 through 9 for me. I really like these cards. I know they've underperformed on the season, but they've got the 2 stars in the heart of the lineup with Goldschmidt and Arenado. They've got players that I really like Nolan Gorman, like Tyler O'Neill, like Jordan Walker. Even Lars Nootbaar is on that list at this point. I like his mid-range power, mid-range stolen base upside, decent amount of hard hits, 22.2% strikeouts, but 14.4% walks. So he gets himself involved, knows how to get on base, correlate with other hitters in the lineup. Brendan Donovan plays multiple positions at the top of the lineup for 2,900 on FanDuel, 3,700 second base only. That kind of sucks on DK. At least they put him at the right spot, though. Like, you'd much rather have him at second base for the limited positioning than at first base or outfield, the other 2 spots they've got him in on FanDuel. So at least they put him in the right spot. Playable part up top, not great, but Goldie, Arenado are priorities. And then any combination of these hitters, top to bottom. I really like this card's lineup. If you get the version of the lineup that has like Alec Burleson in it for whatever reason, or some of those other players, they're mix and match caliber guys. But this is the best version of the lineup in my opinion. So for me, it's Matz and Kelly are both playable parts. Matt's value darts on DK are okay at 63. I probably won't get there very much at 74 on FanDuel. Kelly, some shares of at 9,000 on DK. 10.5 is a little difficult on FanDuel. It's perfectly fine, but a little bit of a stretch. Diamondbacks bats with enthusiasm. Cards bats as hopefully a sneaky play against Kelly. 3 games to go. 526. Not doing too bad. Matchup of lefties. Let's see. What else we got here? We have either of these lineups. Brewers came out. Cubs came out. Neither one of these is out. So 2 very different lefties on the mound, I would say. I think that's fair. Rich Hill, 6,100, 6,800. That projection looks playable. I hate to say it because I don't believe in him. 4.84 ERA, a 4.70 xFIP. 19.3% strikeouts is just enough to make it believable, but that's on 7.2% swinging, 26.4% CSW, 10.1% barrels allowed on top of that, 2.67% home runs. It hasn't really cost him with the barrels, but he doesn't face the Padres every day. They do have Fernando Tatis. They do have Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts. There's a lot of potential around those hitters. Plus Ha-Seong Kim up at the top of the lineup. I don't think I want to tangle with the Rich Hill spot, even though he projects as an okay value. Maybe a couple darts, just remembering the Cole Irvin thing from the other day, or Jake Irvin, rather, the worst of the Irvins. Remembering the Jake Irvin thing from the other day and regretting that came through the model and I didn't play it. Maybe I have a few shares. I did say I was going to trust the model more. We'll see how it comes out, but not a priority for me. I don't fully believe in this Rich Hill spot. I think I want to roster some Padres bats as kind of a priority. It's really the 5 guys I just named. Ha-Seong Kim is a good option in the leadoff role. 14 homers, 18 stolen bases. Already his most productive major league season. And I like him in that leadoff spot. Gets on base at a decent clip. Correlates at a decent clip. Tatis, Soto, Machado, and Bogaerts are stars. Machado and Bogaerts still a little bit underpriced. Soto, obviously, or arguably underpriced at 5,700 on the DK slate. 4,000 on FanDuel is about right. 151 WRC plus for him in another just dynamite season. 19 home runs to tie for the team lead with Machado. Tatis is a superstar in the outfield. Bottom of the lineup is a little bit weak. Gary Sanchez, Jake Cronenworth, Luis Camposano as a second catcher in that projected lineup, and then Matthew Batten, second base, third base, 2,100, third base only 2,200 on FanDuel. He's got 1 home run in his 8 plate appearances. He's got a 248 WRC plus. I think if the season ended today, that's the highest WRC plus in baseball. But it's an 8 plate appearance sample for a guy who's, I think, 28 years old and not a prospect at all. 28 years old, yeah. So Matt Batten, if he's in the lineup, you can mix and match him in, but don't expect a tremendous amount of output. Not to bury the lead, but Blake Snell's the second highest projected pitcher on the slate. If you don't believe in Andrew Abbott, I think this is your pitcher. If you do believe in Andrew Abbott, I think you should definitely have a ton of Blake Snell as well. Obviously a really, really strong option going up against a fairly weak Pittsburgh Pirates lineup. They've gotten a little bit better with some of the premium rookies in here. Lever Peguero had a good game yesterday, hit his first home run, had a productive night for me. Andy Rodriguez is a premium prospect at the catcher position for only 2,100. And then you've got like Henry Davis in there. Carlos Santana had a good night at the plate. Brian Reynolds and Andrew McCutchen are good mix-in type veterans. But Blake Snell has a 31.6% strikeout rate, a 2.67 ERA, a 3.53 xFIP. He's very expensive. $11,000 on FanDuel, $10,000 on DK. You're paying full freight for him. He has those games where he walks the world and limits his output. But a lot of those times he walks a lot of people and then gets himself out of those jams by striking out the next guys to come up. So you take the bad with the good with Snell. Last time out, 7 walks. That kind of hurt him. He faced 24 hitters, struck out 4, walked 7. That's the example I was struggling to find there. But like other games, the game before that, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, kind of a middling performance. 3 walks, 11 strikeouts before that. It limits him to like 6 innings, 5 innings when he's going well because he just throws a ton of pitches to get those strikeouts. And then when he walks more than, let's say, 4, it becomes problematic because it lowers his efficiency. And that's when he checks out really early with a low score. So the extremely bad walk day, we have to fade. Hey, he walked a few too many and got himself into some jams, but worked his way out of it. We're perfectly fine. That's just Blake Snell. That's who he is. 15.2% swinging strike rate. It's one of the top marks in all of baseball. 2.43% home run rate, 33.7% hard hits. I'm just not worried. If they get him, they get him, but it's Blake Snell. I'm happy to take a big stake and find out. So a lot of Blake Snell. Limited interest in the Pirates. If you do go to Pirates, Connor Joe's playable in the top spot for 3,000, 2,400. He's cooled after a hot start, but a playable bat against lefties. Reynolds and McCutchen are playable, but they're not low end, but they're like mid-range performers at this point. Let's call it what it is. 10 home runs for each of them on the season. A decent 122 WRC plus for McCutch because he gets on base at an absurd clip. 384 on base, 15.7% walk rate. Honestly, Andrew McCutchen should probably lead off for this team. If they went McCutchen, Joe or Reynolds, it would make more sense. But like on a daily basis, like McCutchen, Reynolds, Sawinski would probably be my preferred version of the lineup. Put the switch hitter between the righty and the lefty. I think that makes just more sense. Just McCutchen's always been outstanding at getting himself on base. That's been his primary attribute through his very, very good career. Santana, with his switch hitting power, only 3,500, 2,900, 11 home runs on the season. Playable part. Henry Davis, like I said, a rookie, their best rookie so far, 123 plate appearances, 4 home runs, 118 WRC plus. And then the kids at the bottom, you just kind of mix and match your way through all those rookies. So Blake Snell with a bullet, Padres bats, Rich Hill darts, value darts, Pirates bats. Let me reverse that. Pirates bats ahead of the Rich Hill darts. I really don't believe in that Rich Hill spot. Pirates are just frisky enough. If Snell puts a few too many guys on base, they catch him wrong and somebody hits a homer, could be in business. My favorite, I think, pitching spot of the day, Alex Cobb at 7,600 on DK, 8,900 on FanDuel. You can see he has a projection that rivals Andrew Abbott and Blake Snell for a much, much cheaper price. I love this spot for Alex Cobb. Going up against the Athletics, they've burnt me a couple times of late when I've said, like, hey, I love this spot because they're going up against such a shitty team and the Athletics suck and blah, blah, blah. I know they've promoted a couple premium rookies in Cody Thomas and Tyler Soderstrom, Zach Geloff. I just don't care. They've been bad. They are bad. It's a lineup filled with bad players. They're underperforming bad players, like a guy like Seth Brown. Not a terrible player overall. Did have a nice season last year with 25 homers and 11 stolen bases. He's got 10 home runs and 206 plate appearances this year. That's pretty good with a 196 ISO. But 196, 278, 391 as like their most fearsome hitter, I'm not really worried. So I like the spot for Cobb. And what I love about Cobb is just, we've talked about it a bunch of times. You guys probably already know where I'm going with this. But a 1.86% home run rate on 1.5 degrees. Last year, 1.43 on 1.8. Year before, 1.27 on 3 degrees. 4.2% barrels, 3.7% barrels. This year, up a little bit at 6.8. But just one of those guys, if they're hitting it hard and it's on the ground, I just don't care. As long as it's not in the air traveling for home runs, that's the limiting effect that he has on opposing lineups. So you take away any potential for home runs, or not any, but you take away a lot of the potential for home runs, and these A's just get worse. It's not like they're good at getting on base. It's not like they're good at sequencing. So I love the spot for Alex Cobb. I'm going to have a ton. Average on base percentage for the A's, by the way, 299. Not even a 300 on base. Granted, there's a couple small samples in here, but one of them's got a 379 on base to push it up. Yeah, not pretty. Giants going up against Ken Waldichuk. Targetable spot for Giants bats. All those righties that are specialists against lefties like Wilmer Flores, like Austin Slater. J.D. Davis actually performing better this year against same-handed pitching as a righty hitter, but definitely has upside against this lefty. Even the lefties, Mike Yastrzemski, Michael Conforto, both lose a little bit against left-handed pitching, but against this lefty, there's lefties, and then there's like Blake Snell type lefties, and then there's like Ken Waldichuk type lefties. Waldichuk is targetable right now. Maybe he turns into something someday. At 5,200, if you wanted to throw a couple of darts on DK, so be it. Go for it. 20.5% strikeout rate. You're chasing a little bit better than that, but he's walked way too many. He's given up way too much power. It's just not a safe spot. It's not. I don't think that's a recommended value spot, even as a total dart throw, even as an extreme value. I just don't want to push anybody into doing it. So I wouldn't do it. I don't think you should do it. I prefer the Giants bats. They've got a lot of good value marks on the board too. Giants are very cheap on FanDuel. Everybody below 3,000 on FanDuel. Everybody 4,200 or below on DK. Easy to get to. As I was saying, Yastrzemski and Conforto, both playable for their power potential, even with the lefty. They chase Ken Waldichuk, and then God knows what comes out of the bullpen after that. I think you can fire away with Giants here. Kind of limited on the bottom end with like David VR, Casey Schmidt, Luis Matos even. Depends what is in the confirmed version at the end of the day. As we get to lock, Braves lineup drop. Let me make sure the Braves lineup's okay. Cunha, Albies, Riley, Olsen, Murphy, Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Harris. I see that lineup like when my eyes close at night. It's just the every damn day version of that lineup, and we talk about it so much. I could recite their stats from memory at this point. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that outrageous version of the Braves everyday lineup is intact and highly, highly targetable today. Going back to the Giants, yeah, Matos is cheap. Has a home run on the board, but more like a hit tool speed kind of a prospect, but playable. Patrick Bailey's been good. Catcher eligibility. Schmidt is a serviceable mix and match part triple position eligibility on FanDuel, dual on DK, but only a 52 WRC plus over 199. Not great. 52 WRC plus for David VR over 140. 5 home runs, but not really doing what they were hoping he would do. 13.8% barrels is good. Hit 9 home runs, in 181 last year, but only 5 in 140 this year, and just kind of underperforming. In and out of the lineup, not exactly a fixture in the lineup. If you do make the choice to go to A's bats, I would definitely recommend grabbing some of the lefty pop in like Seth Brown, Thomas, Soderstrom, one of those guys, maybe 2. JJ Bleday. Tony Kemp's not good. Zach Geloff, I think, has a little bit of pop. 5.33 leads the team in the home run model today. 273, 351, 545 to start his career with 1 home run, 2 steals, 273 ISO, and 37 plate appearances. It's a low-end squad, guys. I don't know. Jace Peterson, Shea Langoliers, Nick Allen round out the lineup down bottom. Tony Kemp starts it off up top. Tony Kemp, 297 on base, 75 WRC plus. Why not make him the everyday leadoff man? This team sucks. Alex Cobb. Firmly enthusiastic about Alex Cobb. Lots and lots of Alex Cobb for me today. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but I'm taking my shots. Giants bats. No interest in Waldichuk. Very limited. If I get crazy with Cobb shares, I'll probably hedge it off with a couple of shares of Athletics, but I really don't like the spot. Like, even if he doesn't have a good game, it feels more like a spot where they score 3 or 4, don't hit a home run, don't have a big day, and just nickel and dime them. So I don't really like the spot at all for the Athletics. Blue Jays Dodgers to round things out. This one went to extra innings last night. I think it is an interesting spot today. Julio Urias, 9,600, 8,800. Playable. Question about the depth of innings. 23% strikeout rate is good. 4.25 xFIP, 5.02 ERA. Giving up too much on the home runs. 4.79% home runs, 9% barrels. Going up against this Blue Jays team typically only is going to work like 6 innings. Makes it a question of a quality start. Gives me a question around his ability to find the win. Pushes a little bit of power in the direction of the Blue Jays. A lot of right-handed pop on that lineup. I don't love this spot for Julio Urias. I think he's playable at 8,800 on FanDuel. I'll probably throw a couple darts at it, but it's pretty thin looking to me. DK 9,600 just feels a little expensive to me. He's a good pitcher, but he hasn't been great this season. Looking back over time, he's targetable for fly balls. He's a fly ball oriented pitcher, so when he makes mistakes, they tend to go for home runs. You see these guys typically give up more, like higher average home run rates, even in a not terrible season. You see these guys in more like the 3s, the high 2s, like he's been the last 2 years, where they're giving up 17.2 degrees average launch last year, 15.5 the year before, led to a 3.34% home run rate, a 2.55% home run rate. Those aren't tragic numbers, but it just exemplifies how, like, versus a guy like Cobb, who keeps the ball down but gives up a ton of hard hits, when he makes mistakes, they are still typically going to be low trajectory mistakes. When Urias makes a mistake, it's already on a high trajectory, and now it's got a lot of momentum behind it. So that's where the home run problems crop up a little bit. So limited exposure to Urias on either site for me. And then the complete human roller coaster, total mystery, enigma wrapped in a question mark, wrapped on the mound in Chris Bassett. I almost said wrapped in a vest, like that old Simpsons line with about Nelson. He's a puzzle wrapped in an enigma wrapped in a vest. But Chris Bassett, as far as I know, doesn't frequently wear a vest on the mound, so that really wouldn't have made much sense. But all those old Simpsons quotes are just jammed into my brain. 21.8% strikeouts for Bassett. Used to be really, really reliable for a lot of innings, a lot of clean innings, good depth of start. Overall, a 3.92 ERA is fine. A 4.37 xFIP is fine. 9.2% swing, 26.6% CSW. He hasn't been far off his overall numbers, but the nights he has been off have been just epically bad. And he's going up against the Dodgers. And it's just a spot where we keep harping on, like, let's just avoid the Dodgers. Let's just avoid the Braves. These pitchers don't tend to succeed against these teams. Even the good ones don't tend to succeed against these teams, particularly against like a team like the Dodgers, who are so good at limiting strikeouts. And so many of their premium bats are so good at limiting strikeouts. So I really think it's a spot where you can get to some Dodgers here. Will Smith is not a pitcher. Will Smith is a catcher. Probably the best catcher in baseball. I'm going to fix this real quick so that we can see his correct pricing. Bear with me one sec, gang. I didn't bother with Luis Garcia because who cares? All right, we got the other Will Smith changed to Bill Smith. So now we've got Will's correct pricing, $5,400 on DK, $37 on FanDuel, totally playable on both sites. Premium catcher option, obviously, where you need to play the position, but you can use Will Smith at that util spot enthusiastically on FanDuel. He's a great hitter. 284, 392, 484, a 200 ISO, 41% better than average creating runs, strikes out 13.8% of the time, walks 14.1% of the time. Sustainable traits over time for him. Excellent, excellent option in the heart of that lineup. Obviously, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman are high priority items for very big price tags at the top of the lineup. You need some value pitching if you're going to roster the top end of the Dodgers. Max Muncy, 4,800. Nice little price discount on him, though, at third base. 18.1% barrels, 50.3% hard hits, 25 homers, 287 ISO, 121 WRC+. Do not care that he's hitting around the Mendoza line. Pulled himself up above the Mendoza line. I think he's been a little hot over the last couple of games. But just dynamite power hitter. JD Martinez, same story. Dynamite power hitter. I don't care what his batting average is, but his batting average is actually pretty decent. 263, 313, 568, a 305 ISO. Monster power performance from JD. 55.3% hard hits leads the team this year. 5,200, 4,000. Killer season. I really like the bottom 3 lefties here that we talk about a lot. Cheap prices for guys who have just been driving the ball with regularity. Average hard hit rate of 43.3%, supported a little bit by Peralta at 48.6. He's the best bat on ball option, 279, 317, 417, only a 15.8% strikeout rate. A little bit more power from Hayward, only 19.7% strikeouts. It's interesting how it goes up. This all goes in line with logic. Like the guy with the best batting average has the fewest home runs, but the best strikeout rate. The next guy up in the power has a few more home runs, but a little bit lower of a batting average. A few more strikeouts, but still a good strikeout rate. And then the guy with the most home runs in that group, 12 for James Outman, also 10 stolen bases, has by far the lowest batting average in that group, the highest strikeout rate at 33.7%, but the most power. So it's just a really interesting group. They're all very cheap. They're good mix and match lefties. They all play in the outfield. But on both sites, I think you can include up to 2 of those guys in your stack of Dodgers to help average down the salaries, depending on what else you're doing with that stack. It's probably more effective to play 2 of them on DK than it is to play 2 of them on FanDuel, where you really probably only need to use 1 of them anyway. So average down salary with 1 of those guys or 2 of those guys on either site. They're very, very productive hitters. Very effective bottom end of the lineup. The way I wrote it in the article, they're in that list of teams like the Phillies, the Rangers, and the Braves, where you can get a lot of production in sneaky shares from the bottom of the lineup. The Reds are kind of on that list now, too, by the way, with Encarnacion Strand. I know he didn't homer like we talked about as the home run pick yesterday, but he was like 5% owned on FanDuel. I don't know where he came down on DK, but I think he was similarly low owned on DK on a day where Ellie was in the low 20s, I think. Matt McClain was in the high teens. It just dropped off to a premium bat to get that low owned in a great spot. And then you have Will Benson at the bottom of that lineup that we talked about. So another team that just at the bottom, I think there's a ton of value in going to some shares of those guys. Helps offset ownership, helps differentiate a stack. You can still get correlation in those spots in the lineup with the heart of the lineup or with the top of the lineup. So all the reason in the world to go to these good teams at the bottom. Other teams don't have those qualities at the bottom of the lineup. They just stick bad hitters down there like the Guardians. But some teams have really good talent lurking at the bottom of the lineup. Blue Jays going up against Urias, totally playable. More a 1 through 6 option for me. This is a little bit weaker at the bottom. Kirk is a playable part at catcher, 4 home runs on the season, 252 plate appearances. Jordan Luplow for the dead minimum is definitely in play. There's a little bit of pop in that bat. 11 home runs in 234 plate appearances, but was not good overall last year. 11 home runs in 193, but was not good overall the year before. Limited chances in the show, but a little bit of believable power for the dead minimum on both sites. If I'm stacking Blue Jays, I can include some Jordan Luplow. Santiago Espinal is more a mix and match piece. Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, priority bats. This is the right-handed form of the lineup going up against the lefty, so you probably don't get Brandon Belt today. Drop him down, but Matt Chapman climbs up. Vladdy Guerrero moves up a spot. Witt's been very productive with the hit tool. 4 or 5 hit day yesterday, sitting 299, 351, 403. 12% better than average for run creation for only 46, 3,000. Second base and outfield eligible. I like Whit Merrifield in my Blue Jays stack. So priorities 1 through 5. Danny Jansen, a priority play on the DK slate. 12 home runs as a catcher and only 217 plate appearances. Yes, please. If I need a catcher bat, I can definitely go there against the lefty. 8.94, pretty decent home run mark in the old home run model there. So this one winds down to Dodgers bats, Blue Jays bats, minor interest in Julio Urias, dart throws on Chris Bassett. And by the way, this FanDuel price for Bassett, I just don't want to pay. If he burns me, if he beats me, if he wins the day at 9,200 on FanDuel against the Dodgers, so be it. I will just have not succeeded today. At 75 on DK, I do think you can throw some darts with Chris Bassett, but it's still low expectation darts. It's still the Dodgers. Let's wind our way over to the pitching. By the way, I realized yesterday when I was looking at this board, I have a link that I put here years ago so that I could do this and just get over there faster. I guess it didn't fully work. It works better on the full screen. But yeah, maybe we can eliminate some scrolling. Let's see what's going on in the chat before we talk about this. Who's leading the home run board today, says Ryan S. Let's find out, Ryan S. That's a good question. My pick for the day was Evan Longoria. He wasn't at the top of the board, but he had a mark over the magic number. Looks like Matty Olson. A lot of Braves up top, as usual. Matty Olson at the top of the board. That's a very, very realistic home run pick for somebody who's looking to make home run bets. I see no issues with that. Pete Alonso, I talked about really liking that spot for Alonso going up against the struggles that Herman has had keeping the ball in Yankee Stadium. So I think it's a good get-right spot for Pete Alonso where he might not be overly popular. Acuna's obvious. Lubob's obvious. Jordan's not playing. Ozzy Albies is obvious, or maybe a little bit less obvious, but obviously 22 home runs on the season. He's not that sneaky, hitting second in that lineup. And then you see some of the Diamondbacks. So Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker both look good. Evan Longoria hiding down here with an 11.27 in the 15th spot overall on the board. So I do try and get a little bit further afield. I don't always love going with the chalk when I make the home run picks. But any of these guys that are over the 10, and there's a good handful of them over 10, these are all hyper-realistic home run picks today. Mikey Ford sneaking in with a 9.85. Such a weird season. Such a weird season. All right, let's jump back over here. It's coming up on 5:50, and we got some lineups to build. So let's take one last look through the pitching slate. Looks like this changed a little bit on the last time I updated runs. So Snell creeps ahead of Cobb on that last run update that I did. But like we said, tons of premium pitching today. A lot of expensive pitching options. Andrew Abbott leads the board, but only by a fraction of a point ahead of Blake Snell. So if you believe in Blake Snell more, and I do, I have more faith in Blake Snell ultimately. He's a more proven pitcher. He's the more expensive option. Both of them in good matchups, but I have no issues if you said, hey, Tara, I'm going to totally fade Andrew Abbott. I don't believe based on these different numbers that we've talked about with the xFIP and the home run potential. I'm just going to throw all those shares at Blake Snell and Alex Cobb and George Kirby. I'd be totally okay with that. I would not tell you you're necessarily making a mistake there. I'm going to play Abbott because I expect he'll be a little bit under-owned for the opportunity, but there's good reason to believe that it's a dangerous spot at best. Cobb, love the spot. That's like my Kenta Maeda of the day. Like we talked about, Maeda was my favorite of the of those options that all looked the same yesterday. Cobb is that guy for me today. I love this spot at price, at all the different considerations. Kirby and Lopez in the head-to-head with tons of strikeout on the board. I like Kirby a little bit better based on the cost, just the different cost rates, especially on DK. That's a major discount for the better of the two pitchers in a very good matchup. But both of these guys firmly on the board on both sites. Savali, a lot of enthusiasm, particularly at the 7,200 on DK. Look at these value options on DK. I honestly have no issues saying I'm going to go to Alex Cobb and Aaron Savali as my two DK pitchers. 7,200, 7,600. Book two premium discounts for two good pitchers in two great spots, and then try and win it with bats. If these guys give you serviceable starts, these two guys, let's say Abbott blows up, Snell has a Blake Snell start where he only gives us 5, good amount of strikeouts, but gives you too many guys on base, lowers his DK score, maybe allows a few runs. Cobb delivers for you at value. Savali delivers for you at value. You've basically got to fade this game and the high strikeout potential, and you are in business. And we know that there are good teams and good power potential on both sides in that game. I don't think it's totally wild to say that Savali and Cobb is a viable combination on DK today. Of course, Justin Verlander's also on the slate, facing the lousy New York Yankees. So that's something to be considered. He projects just next to Savali, so there's obviously upside there. Higher price, obviously upside. Corbin Burns is on the slate facing Cincinnati. He's dominated that team recently. Obviously, major, significant upside. Do not skip those guys and only play Savali and Cobb combinations, just saying that, hey, that's what Terry said to do. He said to skip Corbin Burns. No. Corbin Burns is a Cy Young Award winner, totally justified at that price. Definitely want to get to some shares. Kelly, I start to maybe say, okay, maybe a 10-5 from Merrill Kelly on FanDuel. Maybe I want to start looking in other directions. A couple darts are fine. 9,000 is a lot better on DK. Rich Hill with a decent projection, 68-61, is a playable part, but I really don't totally buy it against that Padres lineup. Really, really thin there. Urias, playable part. Kyle Hendricks, very thin playable part. 6,800 is a lot better of a price than 8,300 for Hendo. If you're going there, do it on DK. Williams against Colorado, don't really buy it. Ken Waldichuk, no. Morton, not with the weather. Herman, probably worth a dart or two, but doesn't project well against the Mets. Bassett, similar story. There's a lot of guys that like you could call even Steven Matz a viable dart throw at 6,300 down here. A lot of darts. But the viable, the realistic, the believable guys are more this group. This is my list of premium guys. These are the guys I want to make sure that I'm getting to a good handful of all these guys. If I lose shares of these guys, I'm not that worried about it. Chuck says, I strongly dislike Cobb. Terry, walk away. All right. What's the justification, bud? Just don't like him? Don't like corn? Don't like, what else is Cobb? Ty Cobb? A lot of people, there's a lot of good reasons not to like Ty Cobb. Alex Cobb, I don't know. I kind of like. Oakland 6 lefties, and Cobb has a 13% strikeout rate against lefties. He can pitch 8 solid with 5 Ks, but that's a risk with no strikeout backup. 6 lefties in the lineup for Oakland. All right, let's look at who those lefties are. So that's the thing. There's lefties and there's lefties. There's context to all of this. And with Cobb, it's a spot where I'm not really chasing the strikeout potential. I'd obviously like him to find some strikeouts in his 1 in 5 type of sense, but he's a low-end strikeout pitcher anyway. I'm just looking for the opportunity to pitch 8 innings and find your way to a handful of strikeouts just on opportunity of facing a bunch of hitters. Was this confirmed yet? So those lefties are Tony Kemp, JJ Bleday, Seth Brown, Cody Thomas, Jace Peterson, and Tyler Soderstrom. So guys that were in this projected but in a different order. This is the last thing we're going to do, and then we're going to get out of here. So Tony Kemp is one of those lefties. 9.7% strikeout rate significantly lowers the collective overall strikeout rate for this team. I go you one better. I'll even pull him up against left-handed pitching. It's going to take a couple additional clicks. Hang in there 1 second. And this isn't totally arguing with that point, Chuck. That's a legitimate enough reason to say that you want to get away from it. But I'll go with my reasons. Oh, this is a right-handed pitcher. I'll share my reasons for wanting to get away from or go to that spot. Against right-handed pitching, even with those lefties, the active roster for Oakland, a 23.5% overall strikeout rate, 89 WRC plus, a 151 ISO. And if we look into what the individuals are doing, let's see. Cody Thomas, in his 23 plate appearances against righties, is striking out at a 30.4% clip. Zach Geloff, 27.6%. Seth Brown, in 167 plate appearances against righties, 27.5% strikeouts. Does have a 119 WRC plus, a 240 ISO in the split. That's good. JJ Bleday, 22.4% strikeouts, does walk at a 15.5% clip, but I'm not worried that much about walks with Cobb. Does have a 196 ISO, 116 WRC plus. Jace Peterson, 23.3% strikeouts. Tony Kemp, only 9.6% strikeouts, but a wildly unthreatening .065 ISO of 52 WRC plus. Soderstrom, in his 30 plate appearances, 30% strikeouts so far against righties, 33 WRC plus. Hitter that I do think a kid that's going to turn into a good hitter, but it's not just a situation where I want to say, ooh, 6 lefties. We do want to put the context around who those lefties are. So it's just 6 non-threatening lefties. I'm happy to go to the Cobb spot. I think the projection's very real. I'll be enthusiastic about it. And hey, let's see who's right. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And the beautiful part about baseball is not that I'll be right and Chuck will be wrong, or Chuck will be right and I'll be wrong. There's a good argument to be made on both sides. That's why I said, lock in bum, not there. Yeah, I didn't think you were calling me a bum, Chuck. Don't worry. There's good arguments to be made on both sides. That's why I asked Chuck, when he said that, that's why I asked, all right, what's the reasoning? What's the reason for getting to that position? What's the justification? And as long as there's context, as long as there's justification, that's not like BVP based or something silly like that, totally happy to discuss it, and typically not going to say you were wrong and I was right, even if it works out that way. Or say I was wrong and you were right if it works out the other way, which is convenient. On that note, guys, I'm going to punch out. We're coming up right about 6 o'clock. Good luck out there. Play the hell out of this slate. There's a ton of options. I think spreading out is the best advice I can give. I think, getting to a lot of different combinations of some of those premium pitchers and then a lot of the different stacking opportunities that we talked about. Try and spread your wings a little bit. Cover a lot of potential outcomes, because this is truly a slate that can go a lot of different directions. With that in mind, gang, I'm going to go build some lineups for myself and wish you all good luck. Go win something tonight. See you.